everybody, and we're here to react to another installment of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. So we had two more chapters. Both of these chapters are kind of split across two locations. So first chapter starts with Shalon and her crew, who are basically, like trying to infiltrate this new Ghostblood meeting, and so we see them kind of pretending to be workers, like observing who is entering into the building and the type of like security measures that are in place, because there is basically somebody outside the door of this establishment who is testing everybody who's entering with sand and trying to see whether they have a active spread or whether they're using light weaving or anything like that. So they're going to have to come up with some sort of a plan to get in, which Shalon basically apparently has. I'm not entirely sure how she's going to try and come and go in there, but basically that is what is going to come next. They're finally going to make their way into this meeting, and we're going to see hopefully some of the secrets, I guess. Hopefully, we're gonna find out that the Ghostbloods are already aware of the knowledge that Shalon has about the location of the Unmade, because, they're getting quite a head start otherwise. Aside from that, and I'm a bit vague on the order here of what happens in which chapter, but we also meet up with Cal and Zetz in one of these two chapters. And there, I think it's more likely that it was actually in the second chapter, but let me try and find this better. Alright, so the second part of that chapter sees us meeting up with Zigzil, who is clearly feeling a little bit self-conscious in his new role as, the leader of the Windrunners. Kind of feels like he has a little bit of like, imposter syndrome, but his friend is definitely trying to help him with that, and they're basically kind of like talking between some of the lesser, like less high players. You have Kmakl, who's like the general, I think, of Fen, and another one of the Windrunners, the Windrunner scribe. They're kind of talking amongst themselves. But so yeah, they're kind of talking amongst themselves about the potential strategy, distribution of Windrunners, and how they're gonna like deal with all of these fused. And Zigzil, in the end, kind of has an idea about, he basically kind of steps up, feels like, okay, I need to stop like letting my insecurities rule myself and really take command. And he has an idea, which hopefully we'll find out in one of the next sections. And then we kind of go into the room with Jasnah, Dalinar, Navani, and Fen. Jasnah already pretty early on spots that Lift is actually also hiding in this room, but she doesn't really betray her presence to the rest of them. And then they basically have a little bit more of a conversation about the implied possibility that cultivation gave to him, or the Night Watcher gave to him. So Night Watcher telling Dalinar that he should try and inhabit the Shard of Honor. And so they kind of have a little bit of a conversation about that. Conversation that, doesn't go exactly to plan. Jasnah is definitely not in favor of Dalinar going for this option. The same way that the Stormfather, of course, was also not really in favor of that. There is a little bit of a big section at the beginning that kind of talks about the timeline of the creation of like Honor, the Night Watcher, the sibling and all of that, and Jasnah kind of implies that there's something wrong with the timeline there, which I'm guessing will probably come into play, because otherwise it's just kind of like, what is that doing here? And so, but so yeah, Dalinar kind of shares this whole idea of needing to go into the spiritual realm to find out more about the path that he needs to take in order to become the Shard of Honor, which kind of implying that he has thought about this, but that he doesn't seem to agree neither that should be what's done. So literally it says, I have yet to know a person who took up one of those shards and didn't regret it, my friends. And then Dalinar being Dalinar is of course like same as any other burden of responsibility, and Wit goes back, yes, but orders of magnitude worse. So I think Dalinar you know, you guys know I don't like Dalinar all that much. And I still also don't think that, like, I think it makes sense that, like, if Honor is gonna be inhabiting any type of body within Roshar, I think Dalinar makes most sense, because Dalinar is one of those, like, Honor is the most important thing in life type of person. So it does make sense that Dalinar would be like a vessel worthy of Honor, but I also don't want him to be worthy of anything to some extent. But so yeah, Dalinar is basically showing weakness here, at least. He's basically, like, because from the outside what it's looked like is that Dalinar has always been super confident, like, I'm gonna be the champion, I'm gonna fight Odium in like 9 days times, you know, it's gonna be me, there's no question about that. He doesn't question that at all. He doesn't open even a discussion into should somebody else rather than Dalinar be the champion. He's pretty convinced that he has to be the champion, and this conversation is sort of the only indication that we have of the fact that he doesn't necessarily think that he will win. He's indicating that he thinks he won't be enough. He thinks that, you know, he needs something greater in order to battle Odium. I just don't understand why, knowing that he isn't enough, he doesn't even consider the option that maybe somebody else could be. You know, I just really don't understand that reasoning. I don't understand the reasoning that of like, yeah, I don't know whether I can do it, and then not even asking others whether they believe that he's the best person for this job or not. But so basically he's saying, I think we need a further edge, and the only way to fight a god will be by like pitting another god against him. So he wants to go to that step, and go up to godhood, basically. And yeah, after a little bit of a fight about that, Wit kind of makes it so that everybody's aware of the fact that Lift and the Mink have basically been listening to this entire conversation. And so the Mink here implies that he was basically listening to this conversation because he assumed that what they would actually be talking about was the possibility to get the Aleti, what is it called? Alatkar, right? To get Alatkar back. Because if conquering the capitals gives you the entire realm, then one thing that they could also do is, rather than only defend the places under attack, they could also take the offensive to the other side and attack Alatkar, which is currently in the hands of Odium. And if they can hold Alatkar by the end of the 10th day, then that would also go back to them. And so Dalinar and Jasna, everybody's kind of happy about this idea, but they quickly come to realize that this would just be too much of a drain on their resources, that there is no way for them to actually make this happen, and that's, you know, they have to give up on this idea, which was actually Mink's sort of like sneaky way of making sure that then they could focus their attention on Herdas, because he was like, yeah, you indicated that the Herdas kingdom, empire, would follow after you had tackled Alatkar. You've now said Alatkar, we won't do it, so Herdas is next. And this is where we get to the whole sort of like Dalinar honor thing. In this instance, I agree with Dalinar, right? But so Dalinar has basically given his oath that he would do that. And so the Mink is kind of calling him out on that. He's saying, like, stick to your oath, send me some men, send me some of your precious windrunners so that I can retake Herdas. And Jasna is like, don't give him that. We are spread too thinly. We cannot commit forces to that conflict. We cannot commit windrunners to it because we will be missing them for the majority of the time of that we're trying to defend these other 3 locations. And Dalinar's only reasoning for not rejecting the Mink, the only thing that he says in any case is, what are we without our honor? I don't mind him saying it's the right thing to do, or being like, it's the right thing to do, I have to do this, I have to give them this opportunity, I have to give them this chance. But the way he formulates it makes it seem more like if he hadn't made that oath ahead of time, then his answer now would have been no. In which case, the only reason he's saying yes now is because otherwise he would be breaking his word, and you know, that's not the honorable thing to do. And I can understand the honor, like the honor part being like the deal breaker in a situation which you're kind of hesitating between two choices, but I feel like that's not how it is formulated here, and I think that that is kind of what my problem is with Dalinar, but that's also why he is like the vessel for honor, I guess, is because he sees honor as sort of like the highest ideal to achieve, and I'm all for honor, but honor comes through your action, honor comes through your intentions, and I see honor more as the byproduct, whereas I feel like for Dalinar, honor is where things start and things flow from honor, whereas I see it as like honor comes from what you do and the intentions that you have. I cannot really formulate that correctly, but I kind of feel like he's so stuck up to the idea of like being honorable, and that's even if that means making the wrong decision, or what he thinks is probably the wrong decision, he'll still do it because he doesn't want to lose his honor, you know? Like, whereas in some cases a decision, like as Jasna says it, you know, sometimes you need to break your bond to think of the greater good, the good for everybody, and that involves making a hard decision. And his comeback to that is, who told you that this wasn't a hard decision? And I agree with that comeback as well. And as I said, in this particular instance, I don't necessarily disagree with it, and I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that he shouldn't be committing these troops, because all in all, it's still a light amount of troops in the grand totality of what they are distributing across the different realms. But it always seems like he just puts so much stock on his honor that, you know, he would never be able to consider breaking an oath or anything like that just for the sake of that, just because it would be perceived as being dishonorable. I think that if, you know, there wasn't this idea of his public image, maybe he wouldn't even care all that much. I don't know about that, but I feel like he has made this sort of like new version of himself, and because he used to be so like live and let live and not care about how he was perceived or what he was doing, and all of those things, and just like being the tool and like point me in a direction and I'll do it. I feel like he's made himself into this sort of like paragon, and like he doesn't want to step away from that high horse at any point in time. Maybe because he fears that will just completely spiral him back into that old person. Maybe, that's not clarified. But the way he's going about it is just like too rigid. There is no room for flexibility. It's just, these are the words, these are the rules. My honor is my honor, and if I don't have my honor, then I'm nothing. You know, whereas I agree that the idea of the greater good can be abused to kind of, you know, how do we say that? You can kind of justify any decision by saying it was in the name of the greater good, you know? Or like that's an easy justification that doesn't often live up, you know, doesn't often hold up. You know, slaughtering tons of people for the greater good is not a good decision. But there definitely are instances in which a greater good can result in having to break a minor or an other oath, especially an oath like this one, which I feel like, you know, especially an oath like this one. But I think the extra difficulty here, of course, is that he made this oath to somebody whose life he's absolutely destroyed in the past, and so this oath was him making up for a worse version of himself. And so if he indeed breaks that oath, then he, you know, has proven himself to not be the good new person that he is. So I'm guessing that that is my reasoning for why he finds it so difficult to break this oath. But the problem that I have with that is that he's doing this constantly, and that I don't even know whether he would be able to ever break an oath, or whether he will always just be like, oh, I gave my word, so I have to do this now, right? Because there's no way that I can break my word and still come out okay on the other side. So that was very unskillfully put to words. I hope you understand what I mean. But so yeah, we have that whole conversation, and so basically the Mink kind of skillfully playing what is his name? Dalinar in this one. Then we go into the second chapter. We start off with Kel and Zets, and we have our first sort of like we had a conversation before, of course, but we have our first attempt from Kel then to kind of get through to Zets very unsuccessfully, basically kind of trying to talk about choices and whether he doesn't want to make choices for himself now that he has the possibility to do those. And I really like how in this conversation Zets is just really just like not there for it at all. Like he's giving like the shortest possible answers to Kel. Kel is kind of like trying to reinterpret his actions as being like, yeah, but you made this or that choice, and Zets being like, no, I was given an order and I found a way to fulfill that order. And then what I liked as well is that like Kel is kind of talking about his scars and like saying like, what if we can heal those scars? And I liked Zets' answer here because it really points out to the person that Zets is, and he says, that is irrelevant. I do not need to be healed, as I do not deserve anything of the sort. I have killed and I bear the weight of those killings. To wish otherwise would be to minimize the damage I have done, an insult to those who whisper at me from the shadows, calling for my soul to burn in recompense for the blood I've spilled. So I like that answer. I don't agree with that answer. I don't agree that there is like no way to come back from that, or that like coming back from that is an insult to the people who have suffered as a consequence of you. But I like that this is like his starting point, you know. Let's work on that. But it points to a level of integrity when it comes to Zets that I do appreciate seeing there, and I hope that this can be just like a building block for their conversations with one another, because you know Cal is gonna have to work a little bit harder because Zets is clearly not yet there. And I like his like new strategy after that is kind of like, let's focus on the Herald and kind of talking to Zets about the Herald instead. I think the way to Zets is probably just like true actions and true working together to heal Ishar is his name, right? I think working like directly on Zets is not going to help, but maybe if they work together to get to Ishar and to help Ishar out, then maybe we can heal Zets along the way as well. And then probably a little bit of a hard hitter for Kel is that he says, nevertheless, do not assume I will endure you trying to save me, Kaladin Stormblast. Not all beneath your judging gaze are in need of your protection. Keep your attention on finding the Herald. So, love this sort of like bumping into each other. Going to be a bromance by the end, I'm hoping for it. But I love this sort of like hard to get, tough exterior on the side of Zets, and this is indeed a hard lesson for Kel, and a lesson that I don't know whether Kel will ever learn, but you know, Kel definitely is a big savior. He takes up the savior role a whole ton of the time, and the idea of him not being able to save somebody, or of somebody not wanting to save him, is probably quite difficult for Kel to deal with. And then we have a conversation between Dalinar and the Stormfather, and the Stormfather basically takes him kind of into a vision, and they have it out about the idea of Dalinar going to inhabit the Shard of Honor. And there's clearly some discussion where the Stormfather kind of indicates that he has a plan and that Dalinar isn't. Like, he's ruining the plan somehow. And this I saw in the comments of this section, and I'd already forgotten about this as well. This kind of ties in with this what do we want to call that, theory that's going around there, that there is a Stormfather and a Stormfaker. So there's a fake Stormfather going around based off of something that happened in the prologue. This is speculation. And that would actually be kind of interesting if the Stormfather that Dalinar is talking to is actually Stormfaker. Because what kind of confused me at one point, the Stormfather talked to Cal, right? And that gave Cal a mission. And so that was kind of confusing to me, because I was like, but isn't he like Dalinar's Spren? But what if that was Stormfather and then Dalinar has Stormfaker? So that could indeed be interesting if Stormfather is actually a fake Spren. And that is why he's having a little bit of a rougher relationship with his friend than others do. A little bit more of a bump in the road. Though the sibling definitely also is less than cooperative when it comes to the bond with Navani. So, and considering Dalinar's personality, I really don't blame the Stormfather for bumping him with him. And the whole idea has always been like that the Stormfather, you know, he's a storm, he's rough, he's out of control, wild, and so you cannot really, there is no harmony there, there's just clash between Dalinar and Stormfather to some extent. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure whether I subscribe to the theory of Stormfaker, but I wouldn't mind it neither. I think it could be a really interesting development within the story. And then basically Dalinar ends up with the conclusion that he will in fact be trying to go visit the spiritual realm, and Stormfather kind of indicates that there's something in the past involving honor that he will find out when he goes into the spiritual realm. And I saw some speculation about like maybe honor isn't all that honorable, and that kind of leads into what I was saying earlier, you know, like honor for the sake of being of honor can be like a negative thing, you know. I think that there's definitely some potential for there to have something have happened in the past because of honor too strictly holding on to his honor. And then basically we end up with Wits kind of giving Dalinar a device that he can use to kind of measure time, because time moves differently in the spiritual realm, and so he could easily kind of lose his way in time otherwise. And so he's kind of linking Dalinar to Wit's time, so he will be able to see how much time has passed by on the normal Roshar Empire, on Roshar, so that he doesn't, you know, like stay away for months and miss the entire championship thingy. But so yeah, that's where we leave things off. Dalinar is about to go and try and move his soul into the spiritual realm, but his body has to be left behind here. And you know, we'll take it from there in the next installments. So yeah, I'm basically just even more eager to see the Caliban sets sections. I think I am quite excited about what is to come now. I like Shallan's storyline. I have in the past kind of been annoyed with the Ghostblood storyline from time to time. We'll see, because I don't think that is going to be like the entirety of this book, of course, because we do need to go and find this unmade, right? So it'll depend on how much time we linger there, but I am enjoying that idea at the moment, or I'm enjoying those sections at least at the moment. I'm living for the Kaladin and Zed sections. I definitely want Adolin and Yanagaun. Yanagaun has been set to go back to have been like on his way back to Azimir, so we'll definitely see some Adolin Yanagaun time, but I'm hoping that Liv will be there as well. And then I'm enjoying the idea of the different fronts and kind of seeing what happens there, though I definitely have mainly my investment is with Adolin when it comes to the actual battle lines, and then I guess we'll deal with Dalinar in the spiritual realm. At least we'll find out some stuff, right? So yeah, let's see what happens in the next section. I'll see you guys for the next video. Bye!